As a CEO, what are the 5 things you need to know to create a fantastic work culture? Now, culture is extremely important for both startups and very large enterprise corporations because culture is related to productivity. More motivated, more energized, more passionate employees of a company are going to lead to a longer retention rate, cutting down recruitment costs and other hiring challenges and different forms of legal tricky bits that you need to take care of and accounting bits and whatnot. So it's really important to retain talent for as long as possible. Of course, as long as this talent is really producing high quality results for your business. But in terms of actually defining what are the key ways to retain talent by building an important culture, here is my list of top 5 that you may use in your organization and of course as early as possible to build a better, a healthier company culture as a result. Number 1 is it's really easier to build a culture than mold a culture later. What do I mean here? When you start an organization, when you really get into building a new company, you can start with the culture in mind. You can start with the core objectives of the business, you can start with the roadmap, with the motto, with everything else that does incorporate an existing brand. This makes it a lot easier to actually handle hiring, simply because everyone is supposed to be aligned to the culture. It also makes it easier for your recruitment staff to be generating high quality results by only hiring the people who are going to be the right culture fit. Now, of course, building culture is hardly the number 1 priority for most starting businesses, especially whenever the founder isn't a serial entrepreneur, because serial entrepreneurs already know that. They know that culture is really the core of the company itself, and that's why they know how important culture is in the first place and why it's really important to nurture culture. And the tricky bit is whenever you head into a company with a broken culture, with misalignments between the teams, with a toxic company environment and whatnot, it's something that has started early on. And there are people who weren't a culture fit from the get-go. And this kind of creates this balance between those people haven't been adapted to the right culture of the company early on, and probably some folks who were a culture fit are no longer a culture fit as a result of all that. So that's why it's this important to actually think of culture early on, and even if you're starting to work on culture improvements, make sure you don't postpone it any further, because the further you get, the more challenging it becomes to update the culture on the fly. Number 2 is the leadership team should live and breathe your culture dreams and the understanding of the motto of the company. Now, why is that important? Early on, and even if you're a startup actually, like even for starting businesses, for the first 3 or 4 or 5 hires, you may potentially be working with different sorts of partners and vendors and people within your organization, right? So this is kind of expected. However, at first you can potentially assign some activities to them and expect them to only follow your existing process. The more you grow, however, the more you are going to expect some people to be decision makers, some people who are going to be following the company culture in the best possible manner. And in addition to that, as you keep growing, of course, you are going to create some form of a hierarchy. It could be the C-suite, could be senior management, could be team leaders, could be other people, and you won't really be involved in your day-to-day. And this is everything. This is something that all CEOs and kind of higher level executives, they know, because it's close to impossible to actually create a culture out of nowhere, and it's almost impossible for one specific person to know everything about the organization and always lead the way. It gets into too much micromanagement. So this is why having your culture defined early on is one of the best ways to actually mitigate some of those issues and make sure that everyone in your leadership team is aligned to those goals. And the further you get, like having 200, 400, 500, 1,000 people, you soon realize that you have a longer hierarchy, meaning that you have the C-suite, VPs, senior directors, upper management and whatnot, and those hires are most likely going to come through the corresponding senior positions. If you have a chief sales officer, they are going to hire the VP of sales, they are going to hire the sales manager and everyone else kind of under the hood, right? Because this is kind of how it goes. You are not going to hire for all of the important roles that you need on the team. And if there is a culture misalignment, an entire vertical of your culture scenario is going to be molded in the wrong way simply because you haven't been focused on the culture early on. So make sure your leadership team is following the culture very closely. Number 3 is your ego is irrelevant. Now, what do I mean here? It doesn't matter how important of an executive you think you are. It doesn't matter like how much you maximize the revenue of the company and whatnot. You can't deliver all the work in a growing company. Again, even Satya Nadella or back in the day Steve Jobs or whoever it is, they didn't know everything about the company. They weren't doing a lot of the work for the company. Of course, they are CEOs. They are the important people for the decision-making process. But let's say you're good at hiring. So you hire several great people. What if you don't have enough work for them, right? That's a problem. What if you're the great salesperson on the planet or a great, charismatic PR star for TV shows and whatnot? You get a lot of business in, you can hire the people. What if you need to supplement with marketing? What if you need to build technology? You cannot know everything. You cannot be the best in financial activities or whatnot. You need your team to make it great. And without a team, basically you can't really do anything. And again, even if you're the best recruitment rock star, you can't spend all the time on nurturing the team and coaching and whatnot, and at the same time generate sales for the company, especially in the first day, in the early days when you're a team of 20, team of 50 or whatnot, and you still don't have a powerful sales team in-house. So this is extremely important. Your ego is irrelevant. Number 4 is understanding what keeps the team around. Now, why is this important? Of course, everyone should follow the objectives of the company and whatnot. This is clear. This isn't really any news whatsoever. However, it's really important that the team is actually kind of following the same page. They do understand what are the core goals of the business, what are the core objectives. Otherwise, if you make a sudden switch, there are going to be consequences. Now, Google had a lot of backlash due to employees quitting and organizing protests and things like that due to some government contracts. This was something that was embodied in the company culture of Google, being international, being not connected to a specific, nation or whatever it is. This was something that was embodied. Once Google decided to kind of violate this rule one way or another, they had a major problem. So they had to cancel, a $10 billion contract or so. Again, any types of business changes, long-term changes that have a long-term impact for the business, any types of those changes you do, they may impact the culture. They may impact the way your staff perceives you. And if that happens on a high scale, you may eventually lose senior VPs or directors or managers with their corresponding teams simply due to disagreement, simply because you have violated the way they work within the organization and kind of their core goals, the core reason they actually started in the organization in the first place. And that's essentially why roadmaps are important. The 5th tip, which is number 5, you cannot ignore sales objectives. Why? Because you can't have a thriving company culture while ignoring their numbers. You can't be generating loss. You can't be, 8 weeks, 10 weeks away from actually closing the company and have a healthy, thriving company culture. Meaning that the business objectives, at the end of the day, they always revolve around sales, or at least they always revolve around profitability. Because again, you may generate a lot of sales through shady techniques or selling data or whatnot. That's not what I'm talking about. You need to be profitable, you need to be generating great margins in order to satisfy the needs of your people, in order to be able to approve vacations, in order to be able to upgrade your team building rituals or whatever it is. Without sales, none of that is going to be possible, which is why your team has to be aligned with the business objectives, as already discussed, and also be aware where does money come from. What are the revenue generating principles of the company and why are they employed in the first place? This way, everyone is going to be aligned with this, everyone is going to follow the key objectives, which as a result is going to be leading to your thank you note of giving back to them as a compliment to them doing their work.